He beat his pregnant wife, but he didn't know who her brothers were. She had worked double shifts day and night, pouring every ounce of strength into building his dream. She gave him her heart, her sacrifice, her trust, everything a woman could give. And now, she carried his child. But one drunken night, in a blind fit of jealousy, he raised a stick and struck the very woman who loved him most. A scream tore through the silent night. Not just a cry of pain, but the spark that would ignite a storm. 3 men, in 3 different cities, 3 powerful billionaire brothers, rose at once. And when they arrived, America would witness a family war, silent yet brutal, erupting into a storm of power, money, and revenge. If you've ever trusted the wrong person, if you've ever been betrayed until your heart shattered, stay with us until the very end. Because Sophia wasn't only fighting to protect her child, she was fighting to prove that truth and justice can never be defeated. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss the next dramatic part. That scream, it echoed down the quiet street, shattering the calm of a California night. Inside the small house, the truth of Sophia's nightmare unfolded. Ryan had come home, his breath thick with alcohol, his words poisoned by jealousy. He did not see his pregnant wife as the woman who had given him everything. He saw only lies, lies planted in his mind by another woman. "Whose child is it, Sophia?" His words cut the room in half. Sophia froze, her heart raced. "Ryan, it's yours. This is our baby." But he didn't hear her. He didn't want to. The poison of Vanessa's whispers had sunk too deep. Her lies crawled in his ears, telling him his wife had betrayed him, that the child she carried was not his. Ryan staggered closer, face twisted in rage. His hands shook, not from weakness but from anger too strong to contain. Sophia stepped back, her voice trembling. "Please, Ryan, you're wrong. This baby is ours." But his eyes saw only betrayal. The stick leaned against the wall, once used for fixing the fence. Tonight, it became a weapon. Ryan grabbed it with both hands, his knuckles pale, his breath heavy. He raised it high above his head, shadow stretching across the room. Sophia's heart thundered. She clutched her stomach, whispering desperately, "Please, don't. I'm carrying your child." But mercy had no place in his eyes. The stick came crashing down onto her shoulder. Pain exploded, hot and sharp. Her body buckled, but her arms wrapped tighter around her belly. She stumbled backward, tears streaming down her face, lips trembling with fear. "Stop, Ryan," she cried, her voice breaking. "Please, for the baby's sake." Another blow followed, heavier, crueler. The sound echoed off the walls, wood against flesh. Each strike tore at her body, but she shielded her unborn child with every breath she had left. Her knees gave way. She fell to the floor, arms still curved around her stomach, protecting the tiny life inside. The world blurred, colors twisting, edges fading. Through sobs, she whispered again, fragile but fierce, "Stay strong, little one. Stay with me." But the stick rose once more, and darkness closed in. The screams pierced the night. They tore through thin walls, broke through windows, reached the quiet street outside. Across the fence, a neighbor froze in place. At first, she thought it was an argument, but then came the sound of wood striking flesh. A thud, a cry, another thud. Too brutal to ignore. She rushed to her phone, fingers trembling as she dialed. 911, please, hurry. There's a woman being attacked next door. She's screaming. She sounds hurt, badly. Inside, Sophia's voice cracked with pleas. Her words tangled with sobs, begging Ryan to stop. But the noise did not stop. The neighbor pressed the phone harder to her ear, her own heart pounding. She could hear the violence, the cruelty, the shattering of trust. The dispatcher spoke firmly. "Officers are on their way. Stay calm." But calm was impossible. The neighbor peered through her window, hands shaking, eyes wide with horror. She saw the faint light flicker from Sophia's house. The shadow of Ryan loomed large, the stick raised again and again. She whispered to herself, voice breaking, "Please, let her survive. Please let someone save her." And with that call, a chain of events had begun, one that would destroy everything Ryan thought he controlled. Sophia's body could no longer hold. The pain was too sharp, the strikes too heavy. Her head spun as if the walls themselves were falling inward. She staggered once, twice, then dropped to the cold floor. Her breaths came shallow. Each inhale scraped like glass through her chest. Blood traced the corner of her lips, warm against her trembling skin. Her arms still wrapped tightly around her belly, instinct refusing to let go. Above her, Ryan's voice dripped with venom. You'll regret lying to me." The words echoed, hollow and cruel, as if the man she once loved no longer existed. Her vision blurred. The room dimmed. She clung to one thought, one fragile hope. She whispered to her child, her lips barely moving, her voice no louder than a breath, "Stay with me. Stay strong." Her tears fell onto the floor, mixing with the silence that followed. Then her body went limp, her eyes slipping shut. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Blue and red lights flickered faintly against the night sky. The neighbor's call had reached help, but for Sophia, the darkness had already come. The last sound she heard was her own heartbeat slowing, and then fading away. Morning came with the echo of hospital halls. Sophia's name was whispered not as a victim, but as a nurse everyone respected. She had always been the woman who stayed after her shift to hold the hand of a lonely patient. The one who worked through exhaustion, her smile never fading, even when her own body begged for rest. Her colleagues remembered her soft voice, her steady hands, the way her eyes carried kindness even in the hardest nights. Patients spoke of her as an angel in scrubs, someone who gave comfort when hope felt out of reach. Yet, behind that gentle image was a secret darkness. The bruises she covered beneath long sleeves, the tears she wiped away before walking into a patient's room. The mask she wore so no one would ever suspect. Her life at the hospital was light, filled with gratitude and admiration. Her life at home was shadows, silence, and fear. No one could imagine that the same woman who lifted spirits each day returned to a house where her own spirit was crushed. The contrast was sharp, and it told a story few ever saw. Before the bruises, before the silence, there was love. Sophia had met Ryan when he was a struggling mechanic with oil-stained hands and dreams too big for his small garage. She believed in him when no one else did. She believed so deeply that she worked double shifts at the hospital, pouring every extra dollar into his dream of owning an auto shop. She skipped vacations, wore the same shoes until they tore, came home late with aching feet and an empty stomach. Yet her heart was full because she thought love was sacrifice. She thought giving was what kept a marriage alive. For a while, Ryan was grateful. For a while, he held her close and called her his reason to keep fighting. But as the bills piled up and success never came, gratitude faded. In its place grew bitterness. Each paycheck she brought home reminded him of his own failures. Each hour she worked late felt, in his mind, like proof she valued others more than him. Her sacrifice, once a gift, became fuel for resentment, and that resentment would one day twist into betrayal. Into that resentment walked Vanessa Lopez. She was everything Sophia was not, at least in Ryan's blinded eyes. Bold, where Sophia was gentle. Glamorous, where Sophia was modest. Her laugh filled the bar she managed, her confidence like fire that drew men close. Ryan met her on one of his darkest nights. The auto shop had lost another customer. His pride was already cracked. He sat hunched over a cheap drink, drowning in frustration. Vanessa saw him and she saw opportunity. She slid into his booth with a smile that promised attention. She listened as he poured out complaints, nodded as he blamed Sophia for his disappointments, and with each word she fed him poison wrapped in silk. "She doesn't understand you," Vanessa whispered. "She keeps you small. With me you could be so much more." Her words stroked his ego, planted seeds of doubt. She told him Sophia stayed late at work for another man, that the baby she carried might not even be his, lies with no proof, yet easy for Ryan to believe. From that night forward, Sophia's loyalty had a rival, and that rival knew exactly how to turn weakness into destruction. Days blurred together, and Sophia learned how to hide her pain. At the hospital she wore long sleeves, even in the heat of summer. Beneath the fabric lay bruises, purple and yellow, silent witnesses to her suffering. She kept her smile steady, her laugh soft, her words calm. No one suspected the storm inside her. Her co-workers praised her dedication, her kindness, the way she never seemed to falter. They saw strength, not knowing it was a mask stitched together by fear. Each night she returned home to silence, to suspicion, to the sharp words Ryan hurled like stones. Alone in her bedroom, she pressed her hands to her stomach, whispering promises to the life inside. She swore she would endure, swore she would keep the baby safe. Yet the loneliness ate at her, piece by piece, until even her reflection felt like a stranger. She cried only in the dark, muffling her sobs so no one could hear. She believed silence was survival. She believed hiding her truth was the only way to keep her world from shattering. but the weight of that secret was already breaking her from within. Far away, 3 men carried the Bennett name with pride and power. Ethan, the eldest, ruled the world of real estate in New York. His voice could move markets, his presence filled any room. Matthew, calm and calculating, built empires of finance in San Francisco. Numbers bent to his will, strategies unfolded at his command. Lucas, the youngest brother before Sophia, burned with passion in Silicon Valley, a leader in technology with ideas that shaped the future. They were men of influence, wealth, and vision. Yet, behind the boardrooms and the headlines, they were still brothers. And in quiet moments when success felt empty, they thought of their sister, the youngest, the gentle heart of the family. Sophia never told them about the bruises. She never confessed the nights she cried alone. Pride held her back, and shame whispered she had failed. She wanted to protect them from her pain, believing she had to endure it alone. But blood has a voice stronger than silence. Though miles away, her brothers would soon hear her suffering. And when they did, their power, their wealth, their fury would all converge into one purpose: to protect her. The flashing red and blue lights painted the quiet street. Neighbors peered through curtains, hands pressed to mouths in shock. Some had heard the screams. Others saw Sophia carried out on a stretcher, her skin pale, her breaths shallow. Her arms were still wrapped around her belly, even in unconsciousness. The wooden stick lay abandoned in the corner of the living room, stained with the weight of violence. Paramedics worked quickly, placing an oxygen mask over her face, checking for the tiny heartbeat that meant everything. Their voices were urgent, clipped, heavy with fear. "She's pregnant," one paramedic called. "We need to move now." The ambulance doors slammed shut. Sirens wailed, and the vehicle sped into the night. Behind, Ryan stood in the doorway, fists clenched, chest heaving. He did not follow. Vanessa's figure lingered in the shadows, her smile cold, her hand curling around his arm. The neighbors whispered, voices trembling. Some picked up phones, calling family, telling them what they had seen. Rumors began to spread, weaving through the community. The story of the kind nurse who lay broken was no longer hidden. The world outside her home had seen, and it would not stay silent. Miles away, 3 lives shifted in the same heartbeat. In New York, Ethan stood in a glass tower, a meeting spread before him. The phone rang, and his face hardened as he listened. Papers lay forgotten as he turned to his assistant. "Cancel everything. My sister needs me." His voice left no room for questions. In San Francisco, Matthew reviewed financial reports under the glow of late-night screens. The call broke his rhythm, and his sharp eyes grew darker with every word. He closed his laptop without hesitation. "Family emergency," he said flatly, already moving toward the door. In Silicon Valley, Lucas leaned over a desk, lines of code dancing across his monitor. His phone lit up with Sophia's name. He answered only to hear her pain, faint and broken. Rage shook his body. He slammed his fist down, nearly shattering the wood. "He hurt her?" His voice cracked with fury. "I'm booking a flight. Now." 3 powerful men. 3 brothers, each from a different corner of the country, each abandoning wealth and duty for one truth. Their baby sister was in danger, and by sunrise, the Bennett brothers would descend on California, carrying with them a storm of vengeance. Ryan had not always been cruel. Years earlier, he was a mechanic with calloused hands and hope in his eyes. He dreamed of opening a shop of his own, building a name, proving he was more than just a man with grease under his nails. Sophia believed in him. She worked late, saved every dollar, and gave him the chance he longed for. But dreams do not always survive reality. Customers drifted to larger garages, bills piled up, and failure clung to him like a second skin. His pride, once his fuel, turned into poison. Every time Sophia returned from the hospital with a steady paycheck, it reminded him of what he could not achieve. Her success became his shame. And then came Vanessa. She offered validation wrapped in temptation. She stroked his ego when it was most fragile, told him he deserved more than a plain nurse who worked endless shifts. Ryan, broken and hungry for worth, clung to her words. Slowly, the love Sophia gave could no longer compete with the lies Vanessa whispered. Resentment grew. Resentment became anger. And anger, when guided by Vanessa's hand, became a weapon. The hospital lights burned white, too bright for tired eyes. Sophia opened them slowly, her body heavy, her shoulder throbbing with pain. For a moment she didn't know where she was. Then the beeping machines, the sterile walls, the smell of antiseptic told her. She was alive. Barely. Her co-workers gathered at her bedside, their faces pale with shock. Some held flowers, others carried cards. But what they carried most was sorrow. Tears streamed down their cheeks as they looked at the woman who had once been their strength. "You should have told us," one whispered, gripping her hand gently. Sophia forced a small smile, though her lips trembled. "I'm fine," she lied. The lie tasted bitter, but it felt easier than the truth. Behind her smile was terror. What would Ryan do next? Would he come back to finish what he started? She pressed her hand over her belly, relief flooding her when she felt a faint kick. Her baby was still there, still fighting. Her colleagues saw only a fragile woman in a bed. But inside, Sophia carried a storm of fear too heavy for words. While Sophia healed in silence, Ryan and Vanessa laughed loudly in crowded spaces. They sat together in a downtown bar, her hand resting boldly on his, her lipstick leaving marks on his skin for the world to see. He leaned close, whispering, while she tilted her head back in stage delight. People noticed. They always did. And they remembered. Ryan was married. His wife lay in a hospital bed, her body bruised, her soul broken. Yet, here he was, parading his mistress without shame. The whispers grew sharp. Some repeated Vanessa's lies. Maybe Sophia really cheated. Why else would Ryan act like this? Gossip spread like wildfire, climbing from table to table, then out into the streets. The rumors reached Sophia through colleagues who could not hide their pity. Each word pierced deeper than any bruise. She wanted to scream, to shout the truth, that she had given Ryan everything, that she had never betrayed him. But her voice stayed locked inside, smothered by shame. Lying in her hospital bed, Sophia realized the pain of fists was one wound. The pain of humiliation, whispered by strangers, was another, and this one cut her twice as deep. It was supposed to be a place of healing, a place where Sophia found purpose. But Vanessa turned it into another battlefield. She arrived at the hospital draped in a red dress, Ryan at her side, his arm linked with hers as if they were the rightful pair. Their steps echoed down the corridor, loud, deliberate, mocking. Nurses froze. Patients turned their heads. Conversations hushed into silence as Vanessa leaned closer to Ryan, her voice sharp enough to cut through the hall. "You don't need liars anymore. You have me now." The words carried, landing heavy in the ears of everyone who knew Sophia. She sat nearby in her wheelchair, her heart pounding, her hands gripping the armrests. Eyes turned toward her, filled with pity, some with disbelief. Sophia's throat tightened, but no tears fell. She forced her chair to roll slowly back toward her room, each push heavier than the last. Behind her, Vanessa's laughter rang out, bright and cruel, echoing through the very place Sophia had given her life to. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was humiliation, public and raw. And for the first time, Sophia wondered if her silence had cost her everything. That night, the hospital room was silent except for the steady hum of machines. Sophia sat curled against the thin pillow, her body trembling with quiet sobs. She pressed her hands to her belly, tears sliding down her bruised face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into the dark. "I'm sorry you must start life like this." Her voice cracked. The weight of shame crushed her chest. She thought of the future, her child growing up without peace, without love, shadowed by violence she had not stopped. She thought of Ryan's voice, sharp with accusations, and Vanessa's laughter in the hall. Each memory tightened like a rope around her. Sophia wept until her throat ached, her body shaking with the force of grief. She had given everything for love, and now, with nothing left, she felt small, fragile, broken. "I promise I'll protect you," she whispered again, her tears soaking the sheets. "I'll find a way. Just please stay with me." It was a mother's plea, desperate and raw. Alone in the night, Sophia reached for hope through the sound of her own sobs. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. Sophia wiped her eyes, her hands trembling as she reached for it. The screen glowed with a name that stilled her breath. Ethan, her eldest brother. She hesitated before answering. "Hello?" Her voice was weak, fragile, a whisper of what it used to be. "Sophia?" Ethan's tone was sharp, but underneath it lay fear. "What happened? Why didn't you tell me?" "I'm fine," she lied, though the sob that followed betrayed her. "Please don't worry. You're busy. You don't need—" "Stop!" he cut her off. His words carried the weight of command, the same voice that silenced boardrooms. "You are my sister. Nothing is more important than you. Not business, not money, nothing." Sophia pressed the phone closer, tears spilling again. I didn't want to bother you. I thought I could endure it alone." "You don't endure anymore," Ethan said firmly. "We're coming. I'll call Matthew and Lucas. By tomorrow, we'll be there." For the first time, Sophia's silence broke under the force of his certainty. A sliver of hope stirred in her chest. Her brothers were coming. By dawn, the hospital corridors filled with new footsteps. Ethan entered first, tall, commanding, his presence filling the room before a word was spoken. His eyes landed on Sophia's bruises, and his hands clenched into fists. Matthew followed, calmer, carrying a quiet strength. He reached her bedside, resting a hand on her arm with steady care. "You should have called us sooner," he said softly, his voice controlled, yet heavy with pain. Lucas came last, younger but blazing with emotion. He dropped to his knees beside her, pressing his forehead against her hand. His eyes brimmed with tears. "Sophia, my God, what did he do to you?" She tried to smile through her tears. "I didn't want to disturb you. You all have your own lives." "No," Ethan interrupted, his voice firm, unshakable. "You are our life." The three brothers surrounded her, forming a shield. For the first time in weeks, Sophia felt safe. Their presence was armor, their love a force no betrayal could shatter, and in that moment she realized she was no longer alone in her fight. The room grew quiet once the first storm of reunion passed. Sophia lay propped against the pillows, her brothers close. Ethan stood near the window, his jaw tight. Matthew sat ready, notebook in hand. Lucas never let go of her fingers. "Tell us everything," Ethan said at last. His voice was firm, but softened for her. No more hiding. Sophia's lips trembled. Shame burned her chest, but the weight of silence was heavier. Slowly, haltingly, she began. She told them about Ryan's drinking, the late nights at Vanessa's bar, the accusations of betrayal, then the beatings, the stick, the night she collapsed to the floor, begging him to stop. Every word broke her open again, tears streaming freely down her face. She shook with the effort, but she forced herself to continue. Lucas's rage erupted, his fist slamming the bed rail. "I'll kill him." Ethan stopped him, though his jaw was stone, not with rage, with precision. Matthew leaned forward, his voice sharp with resolve. "Ryan is not the only enemy. Vanessa must fall too." Sophia lowered her gaze, her tears dripping onto the blanket. For the first time, her pain was no longer a secret. It was a battle cry. The door burst open without warning. Ryan stepped inside, Vanessa trailing behind him like a shadow in red. Sophia's breath caught as her body stiffened. "You have no right to be here," Ethan snapped, moving instantly between Ryan and the bed. Ryan smirked, tossing a folded paper onto Sophia's blanket. "She's still my wife, and I've decided I want a divorce. She gets nothing, not the house, not the car, and I'll fight for custody. The child will be mine." Sophia's eyes widened, her hand instinctively covering her stomach. "You wouldn't." "Watch me," Ryan spat. Vanessa leaned in, her voice dripping with venom. "Poor Ryan, tricked by a liar. But don't worry, love. Soon she'll be out of the picture." Lucas lunged forward, fury flashing, but Matthew pulled him back. "Not here," he hissed. The papers sat heavy on Sophia's lap, each word like poison. She trembled, tears burning her eyes. Ethan's voice cut through the silence, low and dangerous. "You've made the biggest mistake of your life." But Ryan only laughed, blind to the storm already rising against him. After Ryan left, the air in the hospital room remained heavy. The papers lay on the nightstand, untouched, their threat impossible to ignore. The brothers gathered in the family lounge. Ethan stood tall, arms crossed, his jaw locked. "We don't meet him with rage," he said firmly. "We meet him with precision. We end him piece by piece." Matthew flipped open his notebook, his mind already turning. "First step, evidence. Medical records, financial trails, witnesses. Vanessa's lies won't hold up if we expose them." Lucas paced like a caged storm, fists clenched, voice shaking. "He nearly killed her, and now he wants the baby. You expect me to sit here and wait?" Ethan's eyes burned, but his voice stayed sharp. "Yes, because waiting is how we win. We strike smart, not sloppy." Lucas stopped pacing, his chest heaving. His rage had no outlet, but his loyalty was unshakable. "Then tell me what to do. I'll do it." Matthew nodded. "I'll hire investigators. There will be a trail. There always is." The brothers leaned in together, their plan taking shape. It was no longer just about defense. It was about war. Days later, Ryan returned, dressed neatly this time. He carried a bouquet of white lilies, his expression carefully painted with remorse. Nurses frowned, but he pleaded softly. "I just want to apologize." Sophia's heart raced when he entered. She had never seen him so humble, his eyes lowered, his voice trembling. "Sophie," he whispered, "I was wrong. Vanessa twisted me. Please forgive me. Let me come home." Tears filled her eyes. For a moment she saw the man she once loved. He placed the flowers on her table, then slid an envelope beside them. "It's nothing complicated," he said gently. "Just an agreement. A fresh start for us, for the baby." When her brothers stepped out to meet doctors, Sophia was left alone. She stared at the papers, her hands trembling. His words echoed, "Do it for our family. Do it for the baby." Her pen hovered above the line. Her heart begged for peace, for hope. If this was the way to protect her child, could she refuse? The ink was about to touch the paper. The door swung open just as the pen trembled in Sophia's hand. Ethan froze, his sharp eyes landing on the documents. His voice thundered across the room. "Sophia, put that down." Startled, she dropped the pen, tears spilling as she whispered, "But what if this is the only way?" Ethan seized the papers, flipping through the thick stack with shaking hands. His face darkened with every page. "This isn't reconciliation," he growled. "It's a trap." Matthew scanned the text quickly, his trained eyes catching the deceit. "Here," he pointed, voice tight. "This clause transfers custody of the child to Ryan, and this one strips you of every asset. If you had signed, you would have lost everything." Sophia's breath caught, her body trembling. "He said it was for us. He said—" "No," Ethan cut her off, kneeling by her side. His voice softened but stayed firm. "That man is gone, Sophie. This was never about love, only power." Lucas slammed his fist against the wall, fury bursting. "I'll drag him back and make him choke on these papers." Ethan gripped his arm. "No, we'll destroy him with the truth. That's how he falls." The morning light spilled through the blinds, and Sophia caught her reflection in the small hospital mirror. For the first time, she did not see only a victim. She saw a woman who had endured the unthinkable and still breathed. Her fingers traced the fading bruises on her cheek. They were marks of pain, but also proof of survival. She pressed her hand to her stomach, whispering softly, "I won't let him take you. Not him. Not anyone." Her brothers watched silently as she straightened her posture, her voice gaining strength. "I don't want to hide anymore. I want to fight." Lucas's face lit with fierce pride. "That's my sister." Matthew opened a folder, laying out documents and photographs. "This is the foundation. Medical records, witness statements. With your testimony, we'll build the case, but it will mean standing strong in public." Sophia flipped through the pages, her hands trembling but steadying with each line. "Let them try to shame me. Let them twist my words. They can't take the truth from me." Ethan placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his voice low and resolute. "Good. Then this time, Sophie, we fight together." The cameras switched on, their red lights glowing. Sophia sat in front of the lens, her bruises faint but still visible. Her hands rested on her lap, trembling at first, but when she began to speak, her voice steadied. She told the world about the nights of silence, the beatings, the betrayal. She spoke of love turned to cruelty, of trust shattered by lies. Her eyes glistened with tears, but her gaze did not falter. "He tried to take everything from me," she said softly, her hand resting over her stomach. "But he forgot one thing. I still have my truth." The interview aired that night, and within hours, the world responded. Social media lit up with outrage, voices rising in unity. Hashtags spread like fire. #justice for Sophia. Strangers sent messages of support. Neighbors left flowers at the hospital. Women across the country whispered her name with courage. Sophia watched the wave build from her hospital room, her brothers at her side. For the first time, she felt the world believed her. But Ethan warned quietly, "Don't celebrate too soon. Cornered animals are dangerous." And across town, Ryan and Vanessa were already sharpening their claws. The backlash burned Ryan and Vanessa like fire. His shop emptied, her bar sat in silence. Their names filled headlines, their faces plastered across news feeds. "We'll destroy her," Vanessa hissed, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were doctored messages, forged hotel receipts, and fake photographs. "We make the world think she cheated. Once her reputation collapses, no one will believe her." Ryan smirked, though unease flickered in his eyes. "And the brothers? Even they can't save her if everyone thinks she's a liar," Vanessa replied coldly. The next morning, the internet exploded. Screenshots spread across blogs. Headlines screamed accusations. Nurse caught in secret affair. Pregnancy in doubt. The lies slithered into every corner, turning whispers into daggers. Sophia saw the headlines in the hospital. Her hands shook as she whispered, "No, it's not true. I've never—" Her voice broke. Ethan tore the papers from her hands, his face thunderous. "This is fabrication. Trash. We'll prove it." But the damage cut deep. Patients whispered. Strangers online hurled insults. The world's faith wavered. Lucas slammed his fist. "They want war? Good. They'll get it." And then an unexpected voice offered the weapon they needed. The hospital lounge door opened softly. A woman stepped in, middle-aged, with tired eyes and a trembling purse clutched in her hands. "Are you Sophia Bennett?" she asked. Sophia nodded cautiously. The woman drew closer. "My name is Marisol Vega. I used to work for Vanessa Lopez, and I can prove everything." She set a folder on the table. Inside were photographs, copies of messages, notes in her own handwriting. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Vanessa made me forge the texts, the receipts, all of it." She laughed when she said, "Once people think Sophia's a liar, Ryan can take the baby, and no one can stop him." Sophia gasped, her tears spilling. You saw her do it?" Marisol nodded, her eyes wet with guilt. "I was afraid. But after I saw your interview, I couldn't stay silent. She's already ruined too many lives." Matthew examined the documents, his calm voice turning sharp. "This is damning. Combined with your testimony, it will destroy them." Ethan leaned forward. "Are you ready to stand in court? On camera?" Marisol straightened her shoulders. "Yes, she cannot silence me anymore." And with her words, the tide turned. The Beverly Hills Gala glittered with wealth and power. Cameras flashed, gowns sparkled, and whispers filled the grand hall. When Sophia entered with her brothers, silence fell. Her navy dress was simple, her bruises faint but visible, her hand resting on her stomach. She carried them not as shame, but as proof. Ryan and Vanessa were already there, dressed to impress, smiles plastered on their faces. Their confidence faltered the moment Sophia and the Bennett brothers strode toward the stage. Ethan took the microphone first, his voice commanding. "Tonight is not about business. Tonight is about truth." Sophia stepped forward, her voice trembling at first but soon strong. "I was beaten, betrayed, humiliated, and when I spoke, they tried to destroy me with lies." Gasps rippled through the room. Then Matthew signaled, and Marisol walked on stage. Her testimony was clear, her documents projected for all to see. "This was Vanessa's doing," she declared. "I forged the evidence under her orders." Chaos erupted. Vanessa screamed, lunging forward, but security restrained her. Ryan's face strained as police moved in, handcuffs clicking shut. The room thundered with applause. Justice had arrived. Outside the gala, beneath the California stars, Sophia stood with her brothers. The police cars carried Ryan and Vanessa away. For the first time in months, she breathed without fear. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's over, Sophie. You're free." Sophia touched her stomach, her eyes glistening. "Not just free," she whispered. "Stronger. For me. For my baby." Reporters swarmed, microphones raised. One called out, "Sophia, do you have a message for women watching tonight?" She lifted her head, her voice clear and unwavering. "Never stay silent. Your voice is your power. I thought silence would protect me, but it only gave him more strength. To every woman suffering in the dark, you are not weak. You are not alone. Speak, and you will find courage." The applause that followed was thunderous, echoing through the night. Her brothers embraced her, holding her close. Together they had turned pain into power, betrayal into truth. And as the story closed, a new one began. The story of survival, dignity, and hope. If this journey touched your heart, share it. Subscribe so more voices can rise. Because courage spreads when stories are told.